In a mere 58 minutes, she utterly dismantled the #1 player in the world. This did not happen in a practice match or a fleeting dream, but on the grandest hard-court stage of them all. Absolutely nobody saw this stunning upset coming. This is the incredible story of Alexandra Eala, a 20-year-old Filipina phenomenon who stepped into the arena of the 5th Grand Slam and completely rewrote the rules. She did not just show up to compete against the most intimidating player on the tour, point by agonizing point. She dismantled her opponent so thoroughly that the breathless crowd completely forgot they were watching a tennis match. The spectators quickly realized they were witnessing pure magic unfold on the court. It was the kind of generational sporting event that only graces the world once in a lifetime. You will want to stay right here as every single chapter of this captivating narrative becomes more unbelievable than the last. To truly understand the earthquake that struck Indian Wells in March of 2026, we must rewind the tape. This epic tale did not start under the blistering California sun on a massive thousands-level tournament court. The powerful spark was ignited far away in the bustling and vibrant streets of Manila. A quiet but fiercely driven young girl from a deeply athletic family was silently plotting her rise. She traveled all the way to the prestigious junior courts of the Rafa Nadal Academy in Spain to forge her raw talent into an unstoppable weapon. Back in 2025, the tennis world completely ignored Alexandra, known simply as Alex to her closest friends. Sitting quietly at a global ranking of 143, she was entirely left out of conversations regarding the future of the sport. She was treated as just another name buried deep on a long list of youthful prospects. Pundits casually acknowledged her existence, but nobody truly believed she was ready to conquer the elite tiers of women's tennis. The experts confidently told themselves her time had not yet arrived, but they made a catastrophic miscalculation. Alex was not merely growing older, she was actively constructing a masterclass in tactical warfare. She treated every single painful defeat and every agonizingly close match as a vital lesson. She meticulously studied every moment her game exposed a weakness, absorbing information like a supercomputer. With chilling precision, she silently eradicated those flaws, one by one. She was actively building the flawless technical foundation required to stand toe-to-toe with the absolute best athletes on the planet. Under the masterful guidance of her dedicated coaches and honed by years of relentless drills at the academy, she transformed into a lethal competitor. All she needed was one single opportunity to unleash her newfound power on the world. That golden opportunity finally knocked on her door in March of 2025 in the vibrant city of Miami. Curious to see her true potential, the tournament directors handed her a highly coveted wildcard entry. A young woman ranking well outside the top 100 was suddenly given a golden ticket to battle the absolute titans of the sport. Looking back today, recounting what she did next sounds like pure and unfiltered fiction. First, she secured a brilliant and commanding victory against an established veteran. Then, she sent massive shockwaves through the stadium by decisively taking down the reigning champion of the US Open. Suddenly, the entire global tennis community dropped everything to watch this fearless underdog shine. She stepped onto the court against the second-best player on earth and swept her aside in spectacular straight sets. Her performance was perfectly tidy, incredibly self-assured, and entirely dominant. In one single breathtaking tournament run, she casually eliminated 3 massive major champions without dropping a single set. She officially became the first wildcard in history to achieve such a monumental feat. Take a moment to let the sheer gravity of that unprecedented milestone truly sink into your mind. She was not even close to being finished with her miraculous run. She smashed through another massive glass ceiling by becoming the first Filipina to ever reach the semifinals of a top-tier 1,000-level event. As March drew to a close, she etched her name in the history books once again. She proudly became the very first player from the Philippines to smash her way into the prestigious top 100 global rankings. Her unstoppable momentum carried her straight to Guadalajara, where she masterfully clinched her very first championship title. The world watched in absolute awe as her relentless drive finally yielded spectacular hardware. She continued to blaze brilliant new trails by securing an unforgettable main draw victory at the legendary U.S. Open. She was single-handedly rewriting the entire narrative of Asian representation in the modern era of the sport. After starting the year ranked at a modest 143, she rocketed up the charts to finish her season comfortably at number 50. Reflecting on her chaotic and beautiful journey, she took to social media to share her immense joy. In a heartfelt public post answering questions from her adoring fans, she declared that her wildest dreams had finally come alive. Her words perfectly captured the overwhelming emotion of a legendary breakout season. She expressed that looking back on the year and reliving those magical moments felt like an unbelievable blessing. The historic memories she created on the court were permanently burned into her mind. She dedicated her incredible season and all the powerful emotions attached to it as a beautiful and heartfelt love letter. It was a touching tribute to her fiercely loyal family, her devoted friends, and her world-class coaching team. She expressed boundless gratitude to every single person who had supported her long and arduous tennis journey. She even playfully dedicated the massive success to the younger version of herself, the little girl who dared to dream big. This phenomenal young athlete had already achieved the seemingly impossible on the world stage. Yet, the fiercely competitive sports world is never easily satisfied with the glorious victories of yesterday. As the highly anticipated 2026 Indian Wells tournament rapidly approached, a terrifying question hung heavy in the air. The entire globe waited with bated breath to see if this rising star could somehow catch lightning in a bottle for a second time. She declared that her legendary season and all the overwhelming emotions tied to it served as a beautiful love letter to her fiercely loyal family, her devoted friends, and her entire coaching team. She extended her deepest gratitude to absolutely everyone who had relentlessly supported her grueling tennis career, even playfully thanking the younger, starry-eyed version of herself for daring to dream. This phenomenal young woman had already achieved the widely considered unthinkable, but as the heavily anticipated 2026 Indian Wells tournament rapidly approached, a straightforward and deeply terrifying question lingered. The entire sports world desperately wondered if she could actually repeat that impossible magic on demand. Do you genuinely want to discover what entirely separates the prestigious Indian Wells from every other regular event on the calendar? The massive mountains of prize money are certainly not the only magnetic factor drawing the absolute best players. It is about so much more than the perfectly manicured blue courts and the breathtakingly arid desert scenery. It is about the electric mood. Stepping onto the grounds of Indian Wells legitimately feels like walking right into a major Grand Slam. The living, breathing crowds are absolutely massive, and the suffocating pressure constantly bears down on every single competitor. The absolute elite athletes of the world forcefully arrive in the valley with a massive chip on their shoulder and something major to prove. Unsurprisingly, the undisputed name printed boldly at the very top of the 2026 draw remained the exact same. It was a terrifying competitor armed with a lethal baseline game that had systematically dismantled every single significant champion of her reigning period. She commanded a blistering serve that violently cracked through the stadium air like pure thunder. Aryna Sabalenka, the undisputed world #1, stepped into the Indian Wells arena as a truly formidable and terrifying juggernaut. She confidently walked onto the pristine courts carrying the heavy crown of the reigning finalist. Coming fiercely off a spectacular and commanding championship campaign at the Australian Open, her intimidating aura was practically radiating. She touched down in the sweltering California desert, fully aware that she was the unquestioned and supreme queen of professional tennis. Enter the fearless challenger, who had just aggressively battled her way into the prestigious quarterfinals of the Dubai Tennis Championships. She was officially standing incredibly strong as the 32nd highest-ranked player on the entire planet. For the very first time in her rapidly exploding professional career, she was physically traveling to the legendary tennis paradise of Indian Wells. She had absolutely earned her highly coveted seated position among the absolute best athletes on the tour. Just a few short weeks prior to arriving at this massive stage, she had completely dismantled Jasmine Paolini, the fiercely competitive 8th-ranked player in the world. Defeating such a high-caliber opponent under the bright lights of Dubai injected pure venom into her game. She practically radiated immense self-assurance, carrying the explosive physical energy and unrestrained appetite of a hungry, calculated predator. She had finally tasted the thrilling, suffocating atmosphere of the grandest stages, and she desperately craved even more glory. However, there is a famously brutal reality concerning the unforgiving nature of the Indian Wells tournament bracket. The notoriously cold draw absolutely does not care about your inspiring personal narrative, and your insatiable hunger for victory is completely irrelevant. You are ruthlessly and randomly paired with whoever the unforgiving tournament bracket cruelly decides to place directly in your path. When the highly anticipated bracket was finally made public, a terrifying potential fourth-round clash heavily loomed between the two warriors. The seasoned tennis experts collectively dismissed the potential blockbuster matchup with a patronizing and highly casual chuckle. The professional oddsmakers barely even gave the wildly hypothetical contest a second passing glance before moving on. The overwhelming and undisputed favorite was naturally Sabalenka, just as she was the heavy favorite against nearly everyone else on the global tour. Leading up to the fierce competition, one sharp-eyed expert quietly noted a critical detail about the young challenger. They pointed out her stellar winning record, having gone 44 against the top 20 and 22 against the top 10 players in the world. They carefully noted that she did not solely rely on a massive serve, making her a highly dangerous and unpredictable floater. The analyst casually mentioned that she possessed a very real ceiling, a definitive limitation to her current capabilities on the hard court. Those exact words were silently buried deep inside a highly technical analytical column that most casual fans completely ignored. Absolutely none of the professional commentators, the seasoned analysts, or even the most passionately devoted members of the Filipino diaspora saw the incoming storm. Even those who religiously tracked her every single movement could not have accurately predicted the sheer violence that was about to unfold. Those casually dismissive written words ultimately went down in history as the absolute most colossal understatement of the entire professional tennis season. The bewildered and breathless audience genuinely could not physically comprehend the absolute masterclass they were actively witnessing. Her precise execution was so unbelievably quick, so incredibly tidy, and so mercilessly effective that it practically broke the collective brain of the packed stadium. It was the exact kind of legendary, generational performance that would be intensely analyzed and loudly discussed for decades to come. The fiercely anticipated and highly electric match officially commenced in the blistering heat of a beautifully bright Californian afternoon. It became immediately and blindingly apparent from the very first opening game that the fierce Filipina challenger was operating on a completely different level. She was completely devoid of tension, absolutely not physically tight, and showed zero signs of crippling apprehension against the ultimate titan. There was an incredibly uncanny, almost terrifying serenity radiating purely from her side of the net. With cold and calculated precision, she made a highly deliberate and aggressive physical move straight to the baseline. She immediately disrupted the notoriously fragile rhythm of the world #1 by fiercely attacking early. It was an event that would be breathlessly discussed for years to come as the epic game officially started in the sweltering Californian afternoon. Additionally, it became immediately evident from the very first game that she was entirely unique. She was completely devoid of tension, absolutely not physically tight, and showed zero signs of crippling apprehension against the ultimate titan. There was an incredibly uncanny, almost terrifying serenity radiating purely from her side of the net. With cold and calculated precision, she made a highly deliberate and aggressive physical move straight to the baseline. She immediately disrupted the notoriously fragile rhythm of the world, #1, by taking absolute control. She was fearlessly returning the exact same vicious, incredibly heavy opening serves that had previously shattered the confidence of so many elite opponents. She confidently returned those vicious offerings that traditionally shattered opponents with extreme depth and sharp angles. As per her usual aggressive script, Sabalenka fiercely attempted to intimidate her way into dominating the contest with a massive serve. Her thunderous forehand historically pushed challengers far off the baseline and brutally forced them into unforced errors. That exact bullying strategy had been absolutely detrimental to everyone else on the tour in 2026. While that raw power worked against everyone else, today it was completely and utterly malfunctioning against the young challenger. The Filipina phenom was absolutely not backing down an inch, rapidly taking total control of the narrative. Long before Sabalenka could mentally or physically reset, Alex was fearlessly absorbing the heavy power and violently rerouting it to assault the wide-open court. She was miraculously able to blend relentless offense with grueling extended exchanges. This breathtaking dynamic was entirely possible due to her fiercely aggressive tactical approach, incredibly fast footwork, and seemingly endless rally endurance. Her delicate balance of raw defense and lethal offense was truly a masterclass. That specific strategic balance was absolutely perfect on this bright Californian afternoon, long before the stunned audience even had a chance to get comfortably settled into their expensive stadium seats. The tone was permanently set. In the blink of an eye, the opening set was officially completely finished, concluding swiftly at 6-2 in absolute favor of Eala. The massive stadium's electric atmosphere instantly and violently shifted into something entirely different. Whenever a massive crowd collectively realizes they are witnessing something historically amazing, a low and continuous murmur nervously ripples through them. Deep in the highest stadium seats, that anxious murmur quietly began and exponentially grew. It fiercely spread like a tidal wave, crashing directly down toward the sun-baked court. Eala absolutely did not slow her blistering momentum down for a single second as the second set aggressively started. She definitely was not playing cautiously in the desperate hopes that Sabalenka would mentally collapse under her own agonizing strain. Instead, the young challenger was the one actively giving the brutal orders on the court. She was ruthlessly forcing her own dynamic game right down the throat of the highest-ranked person in the entire world. Every single heavy return she struck was a loud declaration of her undeniable arrival. Each blistering passing shot that screamed by the #1 player was a bold proclamation of her absolute supremacy. The thousands of incredibly passionate Filipina supporters packed inside the massive stadium were firmly on their feet. It was the exact same intensely loyal kind of audience that had proudly surrounded her in Manila and Dubai, instantly transforming every global competition into a massive homecoming. The digital match clock kept relentlessly ticking forward. The scoreboard brightly indicated a mere 58 minutes of total play as the final, devastating point forcefully touched down on the blue concrete. It honestly felt as though the colossal match had barely even begun. Before anyone could truly process the reality of the situation, the historic battle was entirely finished. The entire stadium practically burst into metaphorical flames, erupting with pure, unadulterated shock and awe. There was an absolutely full-scale, thunderous outcry radiating from thousands of breathless spectators. They had just miraculously witnessed a 20-year-old Filipina girl completely hijack the absolute largest hard-court stage outside of a Grand Slam. She systematically destroyed the reigning world #1 with the cold and casual demeanor of someone who had done it 100 times before. There was absolutely no polite or courteous golf clap for this monumental upset. The audience delivered a deafening roar as the triumphant victor finally lifted her tired arms in ultimate victory. She briefly and beautifully lost her stoic composure as she gazed directly up at the bright California sky. Her emotional gaze was not rooted in deep sorrow or terrifying fear, but rather in a state of utter, unbelieving delight. Across the entire globe, sports social media predictably exploded into an absolute frenzy in a matter of mere minutes. This digital earthquake was not just heavily localized to the Philippines, which obviously produced an instantaneous, widespread, and almost volcanic national response. Avid tennis fans, located all across the globe, were equally stunned and frantically typing. Die-hard supporters across the world who had been religiously following her meteoric ascent since Miami in 2025 finally felt incredibly justified. The deeply skeptical professional analysts were forcefully eating their own written words. Those who had previously described her potential as highly limited were now frantically reevaluating every single critique they had ever published. Jaw-dropping highlight clips from the massive upset were rapidly being posted everywhere online. The unbelievable footage was continuously being reposted and heavily praised by former Grand Slam winners. Trending digital hashtags bearing her powerful name seemingly appeared instantaneously across every major platform. Even before the formal post-match press conference officially commenced, Alex was wildly trending as the most popular topic in more than a dozen different nations. Dedicated sports journalists from the Philippines were aggressively writing their breaking reports. They typed as furiously quickly as their battered keyboards would physically allow after staying up the entire agonizing night to eagerly watch the legendary game. Within the very first chaotic hour following the final point, the internet completely melted down. The powerful word historic was forcefully injected into literally hundreds of massive global news headlines. However, there was also a much deeper and incredibly significant philosophical dialogue quietly taking place behind the scenes. Hidden beneath the loud festivities, the waving national flags, the deafening crowd noise, and the unadulterated happiness of a deeply proud country was a larger truth. They were watching one of their very own permanently shatter a massive ceiling. They were collectively witnessing her achieve something that the tennis establishment previously deemed entirely unthinkable. Ultimately, this was about much more than just a talented young underdog having a miraculously nice day on the court. This specific contest aggressively made an undeniable global statement regarding the very future of the sport. This precise kind of absolute masterclass permanently alters public perception rather than merely winning a few new casual fans over. It completely and forcefully reframes the entire ongoing debate about who exactly should and should not be sitting securely at the very top of the sport. You must remember exactly what the terrifying statistics confidently indicated immediately before that game. Over the previous 12 months, the fiercely dominant reigning champion had barely lost a handful of professional matches. In highly recent memory, she had systematically dismantled and completely defeated absolutely every single significant competitor on the global tour at least once. She famously wielded a terrifying baseline forehand that generated vastly more destructive physical power than practically every other female athlete on the professional circuit. Her thunderous opening serve routinely clocked well over 180 kilometers per hour, a devastating weapon against a rookie making her maiden appearance in the desert. Stepping confidently onto the court against an inexperienced young opponent sitting completely outside the global top 30, absolutely everyone universally expected the champion to casually coast. Instead, a phenomenal young Filipina, who had started the previous year, ranked a lowly 143 in the world, completely destroyed her in under a single hour. This absolute masterclass was delivered perfectly by a rising star who, just one short year later, had not only caught up to the elite pack, but had blown completely past them. During the highly anticipated post-match press conference, the victor offered something incredibly simple but profoundly significant, while beautifully maintaining her signature collected demeanor. Radiating an undeniable aura of absolute calm that has quickly come to define her, she boldly stated to the reporters that she possessed an unshakable faith in herself. She calmly explained that she had firmly believed in her own immense capabilities for a very long period, and she simply needed the grandest stage for everyone else to finally witness it. A completely lucky amateur does not ever boldly respond to the global sports press with those incredibly powerful and deeply profound chosen words. That entirely silent, unwavering personal conviction quietly radiating from the podium was the undeniable and fierce response of a destined future global champion. At this critical point in sporting history, we must briefly step back from the loud commotion, the joyous festivities, and the endless viral videos to truly analyze the fallout. We must deeply consider exactly what this monumental, groundbreaking hardcourt performance genuinely means for the entire overarching landscape of female professional tennis. The elusive next generation of true tennis superstars, and who would ultimately threaten the ironclad supremacy of the current legendary titans, have been desperately discussed for many years. Far too often, one highly promising young name after another brightly appeared in the glowing global spotlight, only to quickly and tragically vanish into total obscurity. The notoriously brutal physical and mental daily grind of the professional tour has completely engulfed countless young players who initially seemed perfectly poised to be the future. Phenomenal athletic careers that absolutely should have blossomed beautifully into greatness were abruptly terminated solely by the crushing, suffocating weight of immense global expectations alone. The highly competitive sport of professional tennis absolutely does not treat raw potential very well, and in this highly unforgiving arena, only consistent, ruthless performance is actually rewarded. Ever since her magical breakout tournament run in Miami in 2025, the young star has been spectacularly performing on a steady, aggressively increasing trajectory that simply has not faltered. She powerfully launched her 2025 campaign, ranked at a modest 147, and triumphantly finished the demanding season at a staggering career high of 50th in the world. That incredible, historic global ranking surge officially cemented her firmly as the absolute highest-ranked professional Filipina tennis player in the entire history of the proud nation. Battling fiercely through 27 exhausting professional events, she proudly and rightfully amassed approximately $1 million in well-deserved professional prize money. She beautifully created magical sporting history by making unforgettable waves at the prestigious U.S. Open, the legendary grass courts of Wimbledon, and the grueling red clay of the French Open. Every single hard-fought Grand Slam main draw appearance was a monumental career first, and she fiercely treated each massive opportunity as a vital battleground rather than a luxurious vacation. Crucially, this absolute unwavering consistency against top-tier talent is the precise defining factor that firmly separates merely decent professional players from truly generational greats. Not just once, but twice. She completely dismantled heavily established veterans, holding significantly higher global rankings than herself in massive, high-stakes showdowns. Her legendary trail of defeated opponents included absolute titans of the sport, loudly proving to the entire world that her monumental triumphs were completely earned trends and absolutely not random flukes. Following incredibly impressive, deep tournament runs in major international cities like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Manila, she rocketed to an unbelievable career-high global position of number 32. That undeniable mathematical reality perfectly indicates that her lethal, purely destructive momentum is absolutely not slowing down anytime soon. It is terrifyingly speeding up. Now, take a brief moment to truly and deeply process this incredible, absolute reality. This phenomenal, history-making professional athlete is merely 20 years of age. This monumental California earthquake was her very first main draw appearance at Indian Wells, and she has not even successfully advanced to a major Grand Slam quarterfinal just yet. She has not yet faced the immense pressure of successfully defending a significant global championship, meaning she firmly remains a highly dangerous player on the rise in the strictest technical definition. The flawlessly destructive version of the young star that completely dismantled the world #1 in 58 minutes is absolutely not her final, ultimate athletic form. This breathtaking upset is merely the incredibly early, gripping opening chapter of her legendary career saga. And that bold statement is completely devoid of empty, manufactured hype. This massive future prediction is neither an emotional projection from a desperate fan base, completely starved for a national hero, nor is it mindless, blinding patriotism. It is a profoundly frank and entirely unbiased analytical assessment of the cold hard data, her skyrocketing professional trajectory, and the undeniable concrete proof of her historic accomplishments so far. She simply declared in an exclusive interview that her obvious answer has always been to win major slams and become world #1, proving she perfectly knows exactly where she is heading. The only terrifying question left is how quickly she will ultimately arrive, especially if she can casually demolish the absolute greatest player on earth in a mere 58 minutes at such an incredibly young age.